There are not too many choices of public sporting events to watch these days, but there are a few, particularly in tennis. One of them is the Ultimate Tennis event, which is a new event being held in southern France. Another is the US Open. We are joined now by Patrick Mouratoglou. He is the chairman and CEO of Ultimate Tennis Showdown. He is also Serena Williams' coach. He's joining us from Nice in France. Patrick, thank you for joining us. I do want to talk about Ultimate, but first of all, I have to ask you about Serena Williams. She has just announced that she is going to be participating in the US Open. Unlike some of the other players who have not yet committed, they're concerned about safety. Do you know what went into her decision, and do you think that it will be a safe environment?
Well, the reason why she wants to play is quite obvious. She, as you probably know, she had a baby not so long ago, and she has decided to come back on tour because she wants to beat the record of Grand Slams of all times, the record of Margaret Court. And so that's her number one goal. She's made an incredible effort to come back in shape, and since then reached 4 Grand Slam finals, but didn't win one. So that's her focus. That's the reason why she's made so much effort, and she's 100% again focused on that goal. So missing a Grand Slam for her would make no sense. Of course, she wants to be sure that she will be safe for sure, but it looks like the USTA, the American Federation, has organized everything to ensure the safety of the athletes. So it looks like the whole thing is going to be safe, and that's the reason why she wants to play. She's 39 years old this year. She has only 2 more Grand Slams to play this year, and I mean missing one would be tough. Let's call it like that.
Patrick, Dan Roberts here. Tell us about Ultimate Tennis Showdown, the concept. Why now during the pandemic was the right time, but also it sounds like with a little bit of a lighter tone and lighter rules that maybe it was something that also could have been a good idea even before the pandemic. I would just ask you if maybe you thought that tennis as a sport needed something like this even before coronavirus came along.
Yes, I do. I do think that tennis needs that format, and that's why I decided to do it. I realized a few years ago that tennis was not in a good position, like many other sports, actually, because the format of sports, the TV format and the digital format of sport is old. It's been created years and decades ago, and the way people consume videos today is completely different from even 10 years ago. And I think the format doesn't match that. As a consequence, tennis doesn't renew its fan base at all, which means that the current format of tennis is perfect for the real tennis fans like me, by the way. I love it the way it is because we're old, we're used to tennis like that, and we like the tennis history. We don't want to change the tradition. But if you want to get a new audience to tennis, bring a new audience, a younger audience, the format is not adapted at all. So the average age of the tennis fan is 61 years old. 10 years ago, it was 51, and in 10 years, it's going to be 71. So it's urgent for tennis to attract a new audience and a younger audience. The ATP and the WTA and the Grand Slams are not going to do it. They're just going to keep satisfying the core fans. And I think tennis needs a second league, much more modern, with a completely different format in order to attract new fans to tennis. And that's the whole idea about it. Now, what about the pandemic? You're right. You're right that it was a good idea even before the pandemic, but we could not make it happen because the players were not available. They were always into playing tournaments, so we couldn't get them. And because of the situation with the COVID-19, we suddenly got a window to showcase a new way to propose the tennis and a new league, and that's why we just took this opportunity.
And Patrick, just quickly, the U.S. Open is going to be held with no fans. How much does that take away from things? And obviously, safety is the point. But for the players, you know so well, how much do you think that kind of changes the feel of playing a match? Obviously, during points, everyone's supposed to be silent, so this doesn't change that. But none of the cheering and clapping after a big point.
I mean, it's clearly a minus. Players love to play in front of a crowd, and I think it's part of their job. They're a bit like musicians or actors at the theater. Like they play with the crowd, and the crowd is playing an important role in their motivation and their motivation basically. So it's going to be more difficult for them, but on the other hand, they're great competitors. Their job is to compete at the highest level. They will be extremely excited to compete because most of them have not been able to do it, unlike the ones who have played UTS, my competition, but all the other ones haven't played one match for a month. So I think they'll deal with it quite well. I'm not worried for that.
Real quick, does the established tennis power structure see you as a threat with this, or are they welcoming what you're trying to do?
Well, it's a good question. I've taken time to discuss with the ATP and the WTA before starting to explain my idea and also the fact that I'm not trying to put myself or my organization against anybody. For me, it's a plus. I think that we can both feed each other. I think that that, as I explained, tennis needs that, and the tennis industry needs to be able to renew its fan base. That's something that we can't avoid doing. So we need something like that. I think some of the ATP fans will become also UTS fans, but I also think that we're going to bring new fans, like people who are not tennis fans at the moment, who are going to start to like tennis because the format is more attractive to them. And because they're going to start to like tennis and like players, they're going to follow them also at the ATP, the WTA, and in the Grand Slams. So I see it as a virtuous circle. I think both can live very well next to each other and kind of feed each other. And my goal, one of my job now, is to convince the ATP and the WTA about that. And and I mean, they know that's something that needs to happen. And
Right.
and I don't think they should change, because if the ATP and the WTA or the Grand Slams start to change the rules to be more modern, all the core fans will not be happy about it. And it's important also to keep your fans. So
Right.
I think it's great to have two different leagues, one modern, one traditional, and for the good of tennis. So
It's good to have choices, definitely.
Exactly.
Patrick Mouratoglou, thank you so much. He is the chairman and CEO of Ultimate Tennis Showdown, as well as Serena Williams' coach. Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup.
Hey investors, Zach Guzman here. Are you interested in learning more about the markets and getting the latest financial news? Well, then click right here to subscribe to our Yahoo Finance YouTube channel. Get the latest up-to-the-minute market analysis, big interviews in the world of finance, and information on how to manage your money every day wherever you are.